Good morning, all. Today we are going to start a new chapter of commerce. The name of the chapter is Cooperative Organization. Earlier, we have already done a basic concept, some basic concept about cooperative organization. In the chapter Introduction to Business Organization. Earlier, we have done a chapter called Introduction of Business Organization. In that chapter, you had different forms of organizations like private sector, public sector, joint sector. Under private sector, you had 5 categories: sole proprietorship, joint in the family, partnership, joint stock company, cooperative society. Last part was cooperative society. So that cooperative society now we'll do in details. Okay. So name of the chapter is cooperative organization. First we'll see what is the basic concept about a cooperative organization. See, cooperative organization developed as a means of protecting the interest of the weaker section of society against exploitation and oppressions by the economically strong and powerful section. It is a form of organization wherein persons associate together voluntarily and on equal basis to further their common interests. Let me read first, then I'll explain. Okay? For example, consumers may join hands to provide goods at cheaper rates by establishing direct contact with manufacturers and thereby eliminating the profits of middlemen. Similarly, people belonging to a working class may form a cooperative society to provide house at low cost to the members. A cooperative society is based on the principle of self-help and mutual help, and its primary motive is to render service to the members. So generally, what we find in a society, there are some people who are economically strong and powerful, especially the rich person. Whereas in the same society, some other section of public are there, some people are there who are belonging from weaker section of the society as well as they are poor in financial terms. So generally, this section who are economically strong, they try to exploit the other person, other people belonging to the weaker section of the society. Whenever the weaker section of the society people ask some financial help, for example, they ask for a loan. Okay, this economically strong person, they play the role of a money lenders. Okay, so they give money as a loan and charge extraordinary interest. Like that, the strong economical people generally try to exploit and oppress the other section of the society who are generally economically weak and poor, of course. So it is a form of organization wherein person associate together voluntary and equally and equal basis to further their common interest. So uh, generally, public who are belonging from poor section of the society or rather weaker section of the society and have their common interest, they generally form this type of cooperative organization. Okay. Some examples are there. So now the question is why people join together to form a cooperative organization. The answer is very simple. See the one example is here. Consumers may join hands to provide goods at a cheaper rates by establishing direct contact with the manufacturer and thereby eliminating the profits of middlemen. Just take an example. Suppose in your area, in your locality, maybe give an example only. Suppose 200 families are there. Now, out of these 200 families, everyone needs mustard oil for their daily needs. So, what the family members do, generally they purchase from the local market. For example, maybe 100 rupees per kg or liter. Okay, 100 rupees per liter of mustard oil. Now, if you go to the details of this price, you may come to know that this mustard oil is produced maybe in Rajasthan or Gujarat. Okay, so let's take an example Rajasthan. So Rajasthan, the manufacturer has prepared this mustard oil and maybe he has sold it to a person who is living in Bhubaneswar. He is also a trader. So the manufacturer who is belonging from Rajasthan, after manufacturing, he sold this to a wholesaler who is belonging in. So maybe he sold that to a wholesaler who is belonging in Bhubaneswar. Okay, at 40 rupees. So the trader who is belonging from Bhubaneswar, the wholesaler who is belonging from Bhubaneswar, he again sold the same mustard oil to a dealer who is belonging in Keonjhar and the person who is in Bhubaneswar, that is the wholesaler, he purchased at 40 rupees, but he sold at 60 rupees to the dealer who is belonging from Keonjhar. Now the dealer who is belonging from Keonjhar, so he purchased the mustard oil 60 rupees per liter. Now he sold that mustard oil at 80 rupees per liter to the retailer who are belonging in Burville. Okay, the Burville shopkeeper. Or you may think in your area, whatever. Okay, so the 60 rupees was the cost price for the whole dealer who is from Keonjhar. That person sold that mustard oil at 80 rupees to another person who is a retailer in Burville. Now the Burville retailer purchased at 80 rupees. Now when we are going to purchase from the Burville retail shop, the shopkeeper is charging 100 rupees. Obviously, he is earning 20 rupees profit. Now, instead of doing that, if we could have purchased it directly from Rajasthan, we could have got it at 40 rupees. And we could eliminate the profits of the middleman. But alone we cannot do. Because if we go to Rajasthan to purchase 5 liters or even 10 liters of mustard oil, my cost will be far more than the benefits. So it's not possible for a single individual, it is meaningless. But if 200 families join together, if because it is daily needs, so if we all see we all have now common interest. Now we all have common interest, we want to purchase mustard oil at a less price. So we can join hands together and we can collect the money. Now anyone or any one person has taken the responsibility to collect the money and purchase it from Rajasthan. Then we can get it at a very less price. So one thing is there that the interest has to be common. Now suppose out of 200 families, 50 families has the need of mustard oil, another 50 families are asking for computer, another 50 families has the need of refrigerator. So now everyone has different needs. So it's very difficult to form a cooperative organization. So to form a cooperative organization, what is most important thing that your interest has to be common. Okay, that's one example. Then another example is given. Says similarly, people belonging to the working class may form a cooperative society to provide houses at a low cost to the members. Another of the examples, people belonging from working section of the society or workers, they don't have the, who they don't have their own house. What they can do, they can form a cooperative housing society, whereby they will collect the money. All the families will contribute their money together. Then they will purchase a piece of land. Okay, all together jointly. They will make some residential houses like a colony. Okay, and in that colony, one family will be allocated one house for the residential purpose. So the work that a single individual cannot do, that work can be done by a large group of public. That is the common concept behind the concept of cooperative organization. So a cooperative society is simply based on the principle of self-help. So you are helping yourself. You are not helping others, but you are helping yourself. And mutual help and primary motive is to render service to the members. Obviously, the first one, what you did, example I told, you got the mustard oil at less price. So whom you help? You helped yourself. Okay. Other, if you would have purchased it from the local market, you had to pay higher price as you could get it jointly from the manufacturer directly. So you could eliminate the profit of the middleman and you could get the price at a less price. So actually, you are helping yourself. So this is the basic concept under cooperative organization. This is a form of organization which is formed by generally the weaker section of the society, people belonging from the weaker section of the society, and who has of course common interests. Okay, this is the basic concept about a cooperative organization. Then let's see then what are the main characteristics of a cooperative society. So characteristics of cooperative society. First, voluntary association. That means you cannot force a person to join in a cooperative organization. It's a voluntary association. That means any people can come, any person can come and join in a cooperative society. So you cannot force anyone. Everyone is free to join in a cooperative organization. At the same time, anyone is free to go out of the cooperative organization also. Okay. In case a cooperative organization, in case a person is a member of a cooperative organization, whenever he wants to discontinue with the organization, he can also leave the organization after giving a proper notice. So in case you want to leave out of the organization, then you have to give a proper notice and you can leave. So no one can be forced to join in a cooperative organization. If a person finds that his interest is matching with the interest of other people belonging in a cooperative society, that person can join in a cooperative society and can get the advantages of it. That's the first characteristic. The next characteristic is religious and political neutrality. So in a cooperative society, people belonging from different sections of the society can join hands, irrespective of their political affiliation, their casteism, their religious belief. Okay. So the membership of a cooperative society is open to all, irrespective of their caste, creed, religion, and political affiliation. Whenever a new member wants to join a cooperative society, he is always welcome. Cooperative society represents universal brotherhood. Okay? It's an option to create some universal brotherhood. So everyone will be working under the same umbrella. Everyone will get same set of advantages. Okay. So there is a brotherhood concept. There is no political, there is no differences. Okay, based on their casteism, based on their religious belief, based on their political affiliation. Next is separate legal entity. Till now, we have done this characteristics very clearly. In different times we have done. That is the general characteristics of a joint stock company. That's separate legal entity. So exactly, a cooperative society is also a separate legal entity. Once a cooperative society is done the registration, okay. After registration, it becomes a separate legal body, just like a joint stock company. So it can own property in its own name. It can make contract with a third party. Okay, it becomes an autonomous and self-governing organization, just like a joint stock company. It has a separate legal entity. So in the eye of law, it is also a separate legal person. Next characteristics. This characteristic is just opposite of a normal company. One man, one vote. Okay. In a joint stock company, the equity shareholders are the major owner. They are the main owner of the business. If you have more money, you will purchase more and more equity shares, you will have more voting power. Because one vote, one share, one vote. If you purchase five shares, you will get five voting rights. Okay, like that. More you purchase shares, more you will have voting rights in a joint stock company. But in a cooperative society, there is a concept of one man, one vote. That means whatever money you invest in a cooperative organization, your voting power will be same, equal with other person. So in case, suppose Mr. A has given rupees 5 lakhs to a cooperative organization, Mr. B has given only rupees 5,000. Then also, the voting power or decision making power of Mr. A will be just equal with Mr. B. Because here one man, one vote, not like one share, one vote. In a joint stock company, if you purchase more share, you will get more voting right. But in a cooperative organization, whatever money you invest in a cooperative society or whatever shares you purchase, your voting right will be same, equal with other members. That is the concept of one man, one vote. Next is service motive. From the example you understood, the main objective of a cooperative society is to render service. Okay, main objective is to render service, but it does not mean that a cooperative society cannot have some surplus. Okay, see, the primary aim of a cooperative society is to provide service to its members. Its motto is each for all and all for each. However, a cooperative society may earn some profits for the benefits of its members. Now, if you want to run a cooperative organization, you will have some other expenses also. Like if you have a house in some cooperative society, so you have taken maybe a rent house for work for doing this society's work. Then maybe you are paying telephone bill, electric charges. You may have some caretaker for the premises. You may have a sweeper. Okay. So for these different expenditures, obviously you need some money. So a cooperative organizations may earn little profits for this purpose. But the main objective should be service. Next is disposal of surplus. Okay. So in a company, what we call in a company, if my income is more than expense, we call it profit. But in a cooperative organization, generally we don't call it profit, we call it surplus. Okay. Or you can, in some extent, we call also profit also, that the cooperative organizations is earning profits, but most frequently use the word surplus. So the next is disposal of surplus. Now, in a joint stock company, of whatever profit the company will earn, whatever profits will be earned by the company, that profit can be given to the owner as dividend. Some of the profits can be kept for the future use. Okay. But in a cooperative organization, how we will distribute? In a cooperative organization, how will you distribute the income of the organizations? There are specific rules. So you have to do it as per the law. What is the law? You see, the surplus of a cooperative society is not distributed among the members in proportion of their capital. So in case the cooperative society has got any profit, that profit will not be distributed among the members. Then what is done? See, according to the law, at least 1/4 of the profit must be transferred to general reserve. 1/4 means 25%. Suppose in a particular year, cooperative society's surplus or profit is rupees 1 lakh. So 1/4, that is 25,000, has to be transferred to general reserve. General reserve means a particular reserve is there. Okay, this money will be kept in the reserve. So in future, whenever any requirement will be there for the firm, cooperative society, then this money can be utilized for that purpose. That is the concept of general reserve. Okay, then a portion of the profit not exceeding 10% may be utilized for the welfare of the locality in which the society is functioning. So the cooperative societies is functioning in a particular area. So in that area, the cooperative society also has some responsibility to do something for the particular area, locality. So around 10%, not exceeding 10% of the income has to be expended for the welfare of the locality, like giving donating some money for the school, college, hospitals, for construction of roads, giving books to the poor people, poor kids. Okay, this type of facilities for the locality. So thus, profits of a cooperative society are utilized for the benefit of its members and the local community. Okay. So how the profits or the income of the cooperative society will be utilized, it is decided, it is depending on the particular act. Next is limited return on capital. A dividend not exceeding 10% can be paid to the members on the capital. The members of a cooperative society are thus assured of a fixed return on their investment. Okay. So I hope you are seeing the book also. So limited return on capital means whatever capital the members will invest in this cooperative society, they may get some return out of it, but it will never be exceeding 10%. Okay, it will never exceed 10%. It will always be below that. So simple return, a similar return can be given to the member, which is not exceeding 10%. Another peculiar characteristic of this cooperative organization is cash trading. In a business organization, you know, there are cash sales, credit sales, cash purchase, credit purchase. So a lot of credit transactions are there. But in a cooperative organization, generally all transactions are done on cash basis. See the book. Cooperative societies sell goods on cash basis. Cash trading provides protection against bad debts and maintain working capital. However, an exception may be made in the case of members. So generally, a cooperative society sells all the goods on cash basis. So as you are not selling goods on credit, there is no chance of bad debt loss. Because if you sell goods on credit and if the buyer becomes insolvent, then there will be a chance of bad debt loss. So as the cooperative organization is selling all the goods on cash basis, there is no chance of bad debt. However, an exception may be made in case of members. So now in case the society realize that a particular member is there who has really poor financial condition, or he may not pay the money right now, he may pay after some days. So some exceptions may be done for a particular member. Next, state control. Another one, sorry, perpetual existence. Next, we have perpetual existence. This is the common thing. Earlier, I have also told you. Whenever you will find that there is a separate existence for the organization, for the organizations, always there will be perpetual existence. Because cooperative society, earlier we have done that, after registration, a cooperative society becomes a separate legal person, okay, distinct from the owners. So automatically, as they is a separate legal person, its existence will be perpetual, because the life of a cooperative society will not depending on the life of the members. Members may come, members may go, but the organization will continue perpetually. Okay, because it is created by law. Which is the law? It is given in next one. See, state control. So every cooperative society must be registered under Cooperative Societies Act 1912. Okay, so cooperative societies has to be registered under Cooperative Societies Act 1912. It is required to observe the prescribed rules and regulations. Government exercise supervision and control over cooperative societies to ensure their proper function. Okay, so cooperative societies workings are under the purview of government. They are supposed to register under Indian Cooperative Societies Act 1912, and in that act, lot of rules, regulations, provisions are given. So the cooperative society is bound to follow all these rules, regulations, and laws. Here, so this is the basic concept